Perfect. Hi, everyone. I just shared my screen. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. Present. Yeah, just to give a quick overview of the topics. Yeah, we'll first talk about our marketing plans and the Index Growth Committee that was inaugurated 2 or 3 days ago, meaning that we got funding from the DAO Treasury. Then we'll talk about dNDX, which is our effort to attribute cash flows to NDX holders, and also the long-term liquidity mining plan. And then Dylan will quickly talk about Index V2, which is in the making. And then this time I want to leave a bit more time for Q&A to kind of hear what pressing questions you guys in the community have. This is our best opportunity to get to know each other, so I want to make the most of that. Right, someone didn't mute. Can everyone?
Hi, Andy, turn off your mic.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's fine. Hi.
So marketing, as I said, we launched the Index Growth Committee, which is basically a marketing squad comprised of a couple of growth experts. I was really impressed by the quality of applications there. So Fabian is in the call. He is the CEO of Pepper.com, which is a huge deal shopping platform where people get discounts for various e-commerce shops and stuff. And they're in Germany, everyone knows them, but they have also platforms in other countries. He's a big fan of DeFi, and he wants to help us. Then we have Yasha from a VC called Greenfield One. We have Buck, which has been a really active community member from day one. We have Grégoire and Louis Gutmann from Starkware. So it's really like, and Jedi, who was a growth expert at the family, a startup incubator. And so we had our first call 3 days ago, and we got funding from the DAO Treasury at $100,000 and 10,000 NDX tokens for Q2. And in the call, we basically discussed what we wanted to focus on in order to get more brand awareness, get the word out, because I think it's clear that we have an excellent product. Our indices have performed better than other index projects in the space. But since we're more recent than, for example, DPI, which has been there for almost a year, I think, we have to catch up on the marketing front. And the 3 things that we said we want to focus on is partnerships with other DeFi protocols, also collaborations with YouTubers, and just pushing out more written content and focus on SEO. I'll quickly walk through those. So in terms of partnerships, it's clear why they are beneficial. Every time we partner with a DeFi protocol, obviously there's a whole benefit on a economical sense and all of that, but I'll factor it out. But just in a marketing mindset, they retweet our announcements. They have a hardcore community which hears about Index the first time, and the closer we get with any DeFi protocol, the more their community is inclined to use us, to like us, to recommend us. And so, with QuickSwap, that was actually, I think, our first partnership, which is an exchange on Polygon Matic, which is gaining a lot of traction. And that was, getting listed on this exchange was our effort to make our indices available on a low fee environment where also small holders could buy our indices, maybe $500 worth of DeFi 5. And so actually DeFi 5 was the first one that got listed. But nowadays they went on to add literally every single index that we have except Oracle 5, I think. And I can't blame them. It doesn't have that much liquidity even on mainnet, but yeah, we'll work on that. But yeah, the NFT platform index is there, the dGen index, CC10, and they have both ETH pairs and quick pairs. And they also have liquidity mining on these pairs. So there's actually some really decent liquidity, and it also provides a nice other yield source for these index holders on L1, because they can go somewhere else, and that makes the rewards on mainnet higher again, because there's less competition for the NDX rewards. And then on Ruler, we got added recently, where DeFi 5 is now a eligible collateral, so people can borrow DAI with DeFi 5. And Banker, we got whitelisted, our NDX token got whitelisted, also our indices, but there's a sort of technical problem there for them to get listed. They have some pretty strict security requirements, which we need to sort out before they get listed. But so NDX is whitelisted and live on Bancor. And now currently there's a vote happening, which, if everything goes well, will go through tomorrow. And that will lead to a increased co-investment from Bancor. So they will co-invest 250,000 BNT into that pool. And so I think I haven't calculated recently, but I think it's like almost $2 million. And that means that there will be a whole lot more room for NDX single staking, which means that users can stake their NDX tokens and earn swap fees without facing impermanent loss, because that's the one big USP of Banker, providing yet another yield source for NDX. And Banker will also do some liquidity mining on the BNT NDX pool, which means that people can earn BNT tokens for providing either BNT or NDX. And then what we also want to do is getting, there's typo, not DeFi 5 listed, but dGen listed on Rari, and Redphone has written the proposal there. I believe he's going to submit it today or tomorrow. And yeah, I think that's a great thing with DeFi. There's so many protocols, so we don't have to annoy one protocol with getting all our indices listed, because that's a tough sell. But we can get DeFi 5 listed on Ruler, and then dGen on Rari, and many other indices on other lending platforms. Then YouTubers. So I ignored this for a long time, but actually I heard from more and more beginners in the space that YouTube is really where they get all their education from. So I do not want to ignore this any longer. So it's crazy. Some of these YouTubers have like millions of views on their videos. Even having one talk about indexed would be a huge boost for adoption. And I think the good thing with indices is that YouTubers are actually interested in also doing videos on them, because they're great for beginners. So it's a great way to get exposure to the space. And yeah, the whole index space is getting a lot of attention. So I think it will be easy to sell these to YouTubers. So currently we're just compiling a list of high quality YouTubers that we want to work with and reaching out, and I hope we can at least close one or two this quarter. And obviously we only want to work with the good ones, not the ones that just promote some Ponzi's, but the ones that have some do education and not just pump some tokens. Then content and SEO is also going to be important. So there's a lot of newsletters, and the tough thing here is finding them all. Many are like super small, have like 1,000 subscribers, and some are bigger, but it would be good to be featured by a good amount of these. And also the bigger DeFi outlets such as DeFi Raid, DeFi Prime already wrote about us, but there's Delphi Digital, there's a lot of them, and we just need to do the outreach basically. In Q1, it was all about the launch. We had bigger problems to face, but now we really want to go through them one by one and ask them to write about us. And send them, some outline. And SEO, if you think something like dNDX, it's completely dominated by DPI, which is unsurprising because they have DeFi Pulse, which ranks incredibly well for all DeFi related search terms. And yeah, but the goal is to write a lot of content and keyword optimize it and rank for this. Good thing is I have a website called cryptotesters.com, which has quite good domain authority, and yeah, with a decent amount of work, I think we can get up there. And then the good thing is there's also other search terms that DPI, for example, can't rank on, like NFT index, cryptocurrency index. So yeah, we will work with some copywriters there and hopefully get more traction, because yeah, these search terms have like 2,000 hits per month, so it would be nice to grab that user flow. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously, there's a lot also ad hoc work that always gets done, and also every one of these IGC members always has spontaneous ideas, which will mention everything that's happening at the that has happened at the end of Q2, but that is sort of the big vision. Perfect. So that was actually the part on marketing. If Lawrence, you want to talk about the staking NDX, which I think is something that everyone is eagerly awaiting.
I will defer the NDX chat to Dylan, but what I will talk about is the liquidity mining.
Okay.
I kind of adopted that one as my baby, so I won't dump Dylan right in it, and I'll talk about liquidity mining to start. So as you guys are aware, there's been I think it's just DGen and NFTP which are still running on your staking farms, which is all well and good. I'm very pleased to notice that there hasn't been a massive tank in liquidity on Uniswap as a result of the temporary stop of the stopgap. But there was, so we've been talking about this for,
I can't see you.
Hello, Armin, can you please stop your mic?
Yeah, I'll mute him. Right.
Thank you. So everyone in core has been thinking a little bit about how this should look going forward, right? Just kicking this can down the road every month is not really efficient. It takes a bunch of our time thinking about it, working on numbers, etc. If you go and look in the forums, there was a proposal that I threw up yesterday, which is the result of Dylan and I working on some stuff, which is it's a proposal update for the NDX emission schedule. And really, it just talks about how LP rewards should be utilized for two things going forward, right? So bootstrapping liquidity on new products and offsetting IL for LPs on established stuff. So we've kind of determined that really minting and burning index tokens should be done in large amounts by market makers and arbitrageurs, as doing so is too expensive for smaller purchasers. And it's also kind of harder to integrate elsewhere than just a simple market buy or sell. We all know this story, right? LPs make things accessible across the Ethereum ecosystem. We want to incentivize these things like in a targeted and dynamic fashion, so we can target different pools according to their slippage for like orders of various sizes. There's been a couple of things that we've produced. I'm just going to run through the current state of thinking and implore you all to please go and have a look at the snapshot vote that's currently running. What's happened is we've thrown up what we think are good terms for what will be a 2-year plan going forward. If that's roundly rejected, then we'll want we'll go back to the drawing board. Well, we hope you don't. But in short, I'm not going to talk about how about the technical details of stuff. I think everyone knows by now that it's based on MasterChef. It involves allocation points for like tokens that we want to distribute rewards for. We can set it up in a way that we can kind of have complex distribution logic for staking. We can do dual reward tokens if we want, if we partner with other protocols, etc. The key thing is that It's set for 2 years. We initially thought 2.5 million NDX over the course of 2 years. That's been dialed back to 1.5 million. And the reason for that is that by the time that's done, that means that we'll have handed out 40% of the entire liquid supply in mining rewards. That's a lot. The way it's going to work is that rewards are going to be handed out on a per block basis. Now, we could just do this linearly by just saying, here is what the block amount is, and then just deal with it that way. But that doesn't really consider some of the vicissitudes of what happens as TVL increases over time, be it by the work of the IGC, new indices that we produce, more money coming into the sector from your grandma, etc. So we do expect kind of a natural, although I say this, not necessarily linear, increase in the per unit cost of NDX over time. And with that said, if that's the case, and remember, liquidity, we only want to target to a certain degree, right? If it gets to a point where everyone is throwing liquidity, staking their tokens on Uniswap, then we don't necessarily need to incentivize that liquidity because it's clearly already there, right? The point of us trying to pay for this is to kind of get people into the pools in the first place. So it doesn't really make sense to deploy a constant rewards per block thing over the entire period, because what would happen if NDX increased in price over time is that we would just drive up APY against all pools. And we'd end up overpaying for liquidity for no good reason. And that's not a good way to run anything, a company, a treasury, pocket money, etc. So as it starts, we're going to be handing out, and these numbers sound very small, but then you have to account for how short an Ethereum block is. We're going to be starting off at about half an NDX per block, ending at about 1/10 of an NDX per block as 2 years go by. So that starts out at about a daily emission of 3,500 NDX, which is just a little bit over where we were when we finished the stopgap. And it'll be ending at about 600 NDX per day, which is about 5.5 times less. Again, I just encourage you to have a look at the forum, which has got a couple of graphs if you're inclined to look that way. I don't think there's anything else I really want to mention. One thing I would like to point out, though, is a lot of people might be inclined to say, well, we want more in rewards. And I get that from kind of a, well, I'm staking, I want to be rewarded sense. But it doesn't really make sense for us to throw everything that we have in the treasury into liquidity mining, right? So I don't think we're going to talk about this too much today, or maybe we will. For example, the Wintermute trading deal that the DAO is hopefully going to approve later on this week. The potential for coming up with kind of maybe auction deals for VCs or future funding. We need something in the pockets of the treasury to negotiate with. So that's why we're looking at only about 1.5 million NDX that's being handed out. So that leaves us with about, I can't remember how much is in there right now, and there's about another 2.2 million left to vest over the year.
I think you said that at the conclusion of this liquidity mining program, which is...
Yeah, we'll have handed out 40. I'm just trying to think how much is left in the treasury at the end of the year, because there's another 2.2 million vesting, and whatever is there. Yeah, it's actually irrelevant to my point. So this comes down to, please read the forum thread, please look at the snapshot vote. If you have questions on it, please ask. This is kind of what we're here for. Yeah, right.
But yeah, maybe I have a question that I think some people also might have. And yeah, if there are any questions, just write them in the chat and I'll pick them up. But the NDX reward amount is basically fixed, and that means that if there are more index pools, for example, right now we have like 5 indices, so those 3,500 NDX tokens per day would be split across these 5 pools. But then if we deploy more indices, then they will, like, NDX rewards will be taken from the 5 existing pools to give some to the new ones.
Yes. So as it stands, there would be a fixed pool to be allocated across all of our stuff per day. So as it stands right now, the ones that would be incentivized in this is would be DeFi 5, CC10, and Oracle 5, because currently DGen and NFTP are being funded by the Sigma wallet. As those Sigma pools mature, they will be folded into the wider dynamic emissions thing. But right now we have that 600,000 tokens. I'm not sure we're going to use it all, but that's what that will be used to pay with. More importantly, we can do things like, for example, if we have, we can incentivize DeFi 5 versus ETH on Uniswap and SushiSwap. If L2 comes around, we can kind of nudge people towards L2 by slowly dropping off the mainnet amounts and bumping up L2 as a result, etc. One thing that we've thought about doing is the original plan as put forward was to say, okay, we'll allocate enough NDX per pool in order to target 1% slippage for a 10 ETH buy. And we'll just make sure that all of those bases are covered. And then what do we do with the rest of the NDX? And the thought process there was initially, we'll just kind of allocate it to the smaller pools. That, upon some reflection, creates a bit of a perverse incentive for some people to provide liquidity for ETFs that are perhaps just not that popular. For example, under that plan, it would produce quite a lot of staking rewards for Oracle 5, which, unless you're a Link Marine, is apparently not doing it for some people, and that's fine. The thing that we've been thinking about doing with those tokens in lieu is, and you're going to love this, bringing back single-sided staking for the index tokens. As in, we would allow you to stake DeFi 5 and claim a proportion of NDX as a result. Now, this would be a much smaller amount, and in the event that, for example, NDX price tanked and we needed to allocate more NDX to the main pools to keep that slippage amount, that would be taken from the single-sided pool. So it would be the case that, something's got, less liquidity is in the pool, we need to pull some stuff from like that spare pool. Fine, you're single staking, but you've got no IL, so you won't be getting as much NDX, but you're not going to get your day in court by complaining about it. That's just something we're thinking about. It's mentioned in the forum thread, but it is admittedly a bit of a throwaway paragraph, which probably should have had a bit more attention, like kind of shone on it. But it's still kind of in development as it is. Anyway, there you go. You might be getting your naked stakes back. Congrats.
Any questions about the long-term liquidity mining? So the TLDR is that it's more scalable, it's long-term, so we don't have to, every 2 or 3 months throw up a new proposal. It's basically set in stone for the next 2 years, and it's decaying over 2 years so that we are not overpaying for liquidity in the case of a higher NDX price, which we anticipate. Yeah, and then I see a question. Sorry, okay, no, this is not a question.
Avi is making the exact point that we talked about internally. That single-sided staking doesn't get us nothing. It is quite a good kind of retention mechanism, but the deal is very much that it's not going to be a geezer like it was the first time around.
Yeah.
That, if this is inculcated into the protocol.
Yeah.
I've talked enough. Dylan's turn. Talk about dividends, sir.
Yeah, dividends. So that's been something that we've been talking about since I think probably December. The idea to give some kind of economic value to NDX beyond just voting on proposals. So more recently, I think a lot more people have been coming around to the idea that that actually is worthwhile to do. For a number of reasons, really, it keeps people interested and invested in the protocol generally. It also gives more value to the tokens that we're giving out for rewards. So the APY will be higher. It'll incentivize people to put more liquidity on the index tokens themselves. And so generally, it seems most people are on board with this. So the way we're looking to actually add dividends is there's a few parts to it. We need to add exit fees to the core indices that we have. So we introduced exit fees with the Sigma pools with DGen and FTP. but we never had them for the core ones. So DeFi 5, CC10, Oracle 5. So we would essentially just be bringing that mechanic to the core funds. The way that works is whenever you redeem an index token against the underlying assets, you'll pay 0.5% of the index tokens to the treasury. So we have that now. I think we've gotten about $30,000 in exit fees from DGen and NFTP, the vast majority of that from DGen. So yeah, we just have to, I'm finishing up a couple of contracts that'll be put up for a proposal, I think, this week. What that'll do is, yeah, add the exit fees to the core funds and then move the recipient of the fees from the Sigma ones to just the contract that like sells them for some payment token. And then the exit fee percentage is only 0.5%. Sorry, that was just the question in the chat. So yeah, we'll sell it for some payment token. So we're still discussing on the forum what that will be. I put out a request for people to kind of help contribute to the parameters for this, and there haven't been that many responses. So I think we're just gonna come up with 2 or 3 options and put them on Snapshot this week. And then as far as how you'll actually stake NDX to receive dividends, we can't just distribute the fees to everyone that holds NDX for a number of reasons. A lot of the NDX are held by the treasury, and we don't want to just be giving fees back to ourselves. And a lot of them are still vesting to the treasury, so we don't want to do that either. Additionally, it would just be very expensive with gas to try to send everyone dividends every once in a while. So what we would do instead is you'll lock up NDX for a set period of time. With this proposal we're doing to enable it, we need to set a couple of parameters, which are like the minimum duration for locking NDX and a maximum duration. So for example, you might lock up NDX for 3 months at a minimum, or like 2 years at a maximum. And then based on how long you stake, you'll get a multiplier on the amount of dividends that you get. So when you lock the NDX, you'll get a dividends token, which we're just going to call dNDX, and that is an ERC20 token. You can transfer it, you can sell it, you can do whatever you want with it, but it will accumulate dividends as the fees are sold to the payment token, which might be DAI, it might be NDX. There's some discussion on the forum about the benefits of each. Essentially, I think most of the arguments boil down to, if we choose NDX as the payment token, we'll keep people kind of within the protocol. People that are staking will be able to build up voting rewards because, or voting shares, by, you know, kind of being locked into the protocol for like a longer period of time. And so it might make sense to give additional voting shares to those people. Whereas if we chose DAI, it would be more standard kind of dividends, where you're just receiving a currency essentially by staking. Yeah, so we need to decide what those parameters will be. But yeah, what else do I need to decide? So yeah, there will be an early withdrawal fee and a bonus multiplier, which we also need to vote on. The early withdrawal fee is just, say you lock up for a year, but you withdraw after 6 months, you would pay like half of the maximum withdrawal fee. And so we just need to work on some parameters around that. There's a lot more detail on the forum post. I encourage everyone to look at that. And yesterday or the day before, I put up a Google sheet that you can use to kind of play around with the parameters and see what the result would be. So I encourage everyone to play with that and submit suggestions in the thread before we create the snapshot post. It's a little bit complicated, but it's going to be locked in once we create this for the next couple of years, because we won't be able to modify the parameters. So yeah, it'd be nice to have everyone take a look at that. Did I leave anything out?
The only point that I would make there is that in order to then reclaim your NDX that you've staked, you will have to burn the amount of dNDX that you were issued at the start. So what we suspect will probably happen is that a little cottage industry will turn up for people trading dNDX separately. So for example, I'm not going to stake my NDX. I don't think that people in core should be claiming parts of that, but I might buy some dNDX if it comes up. I don't know yet. So it is worth considering that if you stake a bunch of NDX and then decide to sell or try and swing trade your dNDX, that you're gonna need to have the same amount back in order to burn it, because otherwise you've effectively locked your NDX up for good.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, I think there might be some people using that as kind of a loan almost, where yeah, you lock up NDX. Maybe you think that the dividends will be lower in the future, and so people will be less interested in buying it. So you sell the NDX, and then you have to get it back at some point. But
is there any likely outcome where the lock tokens are forced to be released? There will be an emergency withdrawal.
On dNDX, you mean?
Yeah.
There is not an emergency
Oh
withdrawal.
no, so I'm thinking of, yeah, sorry, please disregard me.
There is on the Master Chef.
Yeah, apologies. Sorry.
But yeah, no, there's no emergency withdrawal. I can't think of any reason why we would want to force that to be released. Oh, there is another point on dNDX, which is that when you stake them, you won't lose your ability to vote on proposals. That's kind of a major point in figuring out how to do any kind of dividends or economic incentives, is that if you were to just like deposit NDX into a standard contract, there wouldn't be any way to allow you to still delegate your balance, because the way that the NDX token is designed, when you delegate, it's your entire balance. So if you have a contract holding everybody's tokens, it wouldn't be able to individually delegate people's balances back to each person. So we the way that the contract will work is it'll essentially deploy like a separate wallet for each person, and then delegate their voting shares back to them when they make the deposit. So yeah, if you're concerned about voting rights, you won't lose those by participating in this.
There's one comment about the APY. This person thinks that given the amount of reward that we collected on dGen so far, it's likely that the APY for staking NDX will be low, even though we extend it to other indices. So the buyback should be the best option because it causes price appreciation. Do you have any comment on that?
I mean, there's going to be people viciously fighting both sides of this, right? So
I think that's a fair point. When you look at the dGen fees in the first month, I think we got about $20,000, and it represented well, it was like 20% or like 30% of the total TVL that we had. So if we assume that exit fees would be the same for every like unit of TVL that we have, then once we added it, we can maybe expect to get like $60,000-$70,000 a month in fees. So yeah, it's not incredibly high APY. That being said, it'll grow as liquidity in the protocol grows as a whole. And once we have index v2 and we can introduce things like performance fees, we could see protocol revenue growing quite a bit potentially. but that's pretty speculative. There's no real way at the moment to estimate what the revenue is going to look like long term, just because it depends on so many different factors.
I also expect the exit fee revenue to be higher for DeFi 5 than for degen, because the underlying tokens have way more liquidity, so they're more attractive for arbitrageurs to exit and arbitrage basically. So I think there would be more exit fee revenue than on degen, where it's less easy to do, but this is just hypothesis as well.
Yeah, the nature of this is that everything has to be couched in we think, we suspect. So you know, until we start seeing raw data, everyone, there's not really much that we can say.
Okay, should we talk about, okay, so assuming I move my NDX to a layer 2, can I still vote with it? Well, that's difficult, right? But then you talked about this once, that there was a potential solution, but it's quite hacky.
So you could, if we do the same thing that we have for the dividends, like the staking contract for NDX, as the like L1 deposit contract for the L2, then yes, but that's that would require that the L2 allows you to just make your own deposit contract for the tokens. I haven't actually looked into how that works with like Matic. I know that they have their own system for setting all of that up. I would assume that we can't just put whatever custom logic we want on the deposit contract. We might be able to, but if we can't, which I assume is the case, then you would not be able to vote with it.
I mean, one idea is that as layer 2 ecosystems scale, there might be a time where we move the DAO, like the governance, onto a layer 2, but it won't solve the problem that, I mean, you'll still have NDX tokens on different networks, and not all of them will be able to vote. So yeah, it's not really solving the problem. Dylan, do you want to talk about index v2? And you can really, don't have to go too technical, maybe just 3-4 minutes, the benefits, what it will uniquely enable, so that we have at least around 15 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah, sure. So with all of our current indices that we have, we use a modified balancer pool contract for them. And that means that all of the pools are themselves AMMs. So if you look at DeFi 5, you can swap the underlying tokens in that pool between each other. So in order to have that work, you need to actually have all of the tokens in the contract. So, on DeFi 5, we have, like Comp and Aave, I think. You can swap those between each other. So the pool has to have all of the liquidity in itself, which means it can't do anything with it. We can't put tokens into like a Yearn Vault or lend them to Aave. Now, there's some workarounds there that we could do, which would enable like some amount of interest generation, but there's still a lot of strategies that we might want to create, such as making like a leveraged bull or bear ETF, or doing more complex rebalancing strategies, or using tokens that don't have any liquidity on external markets, things like that, which under the current system just don't really work. Or if we made some workaround for it, it would be very expensive with gas. Now I know that Balancer V2 is coming out, and they're trying to solve this by making it so you can have part of your liquidity in the AMM and part of it in like a separate vault, and then you can do something with the vault. But that adds quite a bit of complexity to the system. It adds a lot of gas fees in certain points of it, and it still requires that you reserve a pretty large portion of all of your liquidity into the AMM, which you're not doing anything with. So what what I've been working on is V2. It's basically a complete protocol rewrite. There's not going to be almost any shared code with V2 and V1. And the idea is to do something more similar to set protocol or Yearn, where you have a vault that has the tokens in it, but it's not an AMM, and it doesn't have to have all of the like base tokens that you're trying to hold in itself. It could do something where it like lends them to another contract, like on Aave or Comp or something. It could put them into another Yearn vault. It could do really anything that we might want to do with liquidity as part of an ETF strategy. So yeah, that'll really unlock a lot of possibilities. It's not going to remove the need for V1, because doing that is only useful if you have secondary markets and you know, like lending protocols that you can do something with. If those don't exist, like with newer tokens, something like dGen, or I would assume Oracle 5 as well, where there's not a lot of secondary markets for the underlying assets, then we would still use V1. It's still a pretty nice way to design an ETF. Makes rebalancing super simple, but yeah, it just doesn't kind of optimize for yield that you can get.
And the rebalancing in this case would happen via limit orders on Uniswap v3, right?
So that will be part of it. There's going to be a number of rebalancing options. It's not going to be built into the protocol that you have to do it a specific way. Essentially, what we'll be able to do is design like a custom strategy for how to manage an ETF that doesn't have to follow the same kind of requirements as our current ones. And that strategy will define how a rebalance happens. So for example, say you have a stablecoin ETF and the idea is just to maximize yield, but you never have to actually swap tokens. You just want to like deposit them into one vault, withdraw them, deposit them to another vault, something like that. You wouldn't need to use Uniswap or any other exchange. You would just do deposits and withdrawals against the underlying asset. Or you might have something more similar to our current indices where you actually do need to swap the assets, but then in some cases it might make sense to use limit orders. In some cases you might just want to swap it right away, depending on like the amount of tokens that you're selling. So we're going to have a number of options there that people designing ETF strategies can use, and it'll be pretty flexible.
I think you kind of answered this in your last answer, but there's a question about how will burns be handled or exits if the underlying tokens are in other protocols. So if I want to imagine it's DeFi 5 V2, if I want to burn it, what kind of happens under the hood?
So I think this is still in pretty early stages in the contract design, and like I said, it'll when it comes to the exact details, that'll be kind of specific to each strategy. But I think the way that will work is we'll keep some percent of the liquidity, like a small percent, like maybe 2 to 5% of the tokens in the vault itself, so in the actual ETF, and then use the other like 95% to do the deposits, which is similar to what Yearn does. And then as a result, whenever you want to redeem the tokens against the underlying assets, there's some liquidity there to just give to you right away. And if there's not enough in the contract, then it will go and withdraw from the vault. So the idea there is really just to minimize gas fees.
So it's like a buffer.
Yeah, exactly.
A float. Yeah. Cool.
Right. I think we've spoken about V2 and what have you a bit. So give us other questions, people.
Yeah. Any questions are fair game. Any suggestions can also be marketing related. Anything.
You can unmute your mics for this bit.
New website when? Connor, this one goes to you.
Yeah, sure. So I can touch on this real quick. Just to give you a little bit of background, the promise has been made over and over again that we're almost there, and we are. Some of you guys know how software works. Last 5% sometimes takes longer than the rest of 95%. And my attention has kind of been split multiple ways for various reasons recently, but that's going away. And basically the situation we're in is we're leveraging a lot of the assets already created and the site that you guys have seen sneak peeks of, but I went ahead and made a slightly different layout that wraps it. And I'll go ahead and show you a sneak peek of that real quick. Can you enable the screen sharing for me?
That's your power.
Connor Brian, allow, make host. I can only make you host.
Kuzo, it's not a sneak peek if everyone gets to see it.
Or is it? Okay, so just a little bit of heads up. Right now, the persistence isn't turned on because I'm debugging. So every page I'm going to have to reload, but that's not the actual case. I stayed up all night last night, and I told Dylan that this would be ready by end of day tomorrow. I think we're putting together a few days of buffer zone just in case, but we're really just about almost there. So here you can see okay, so first of all, multiple languages. We already had, I don't know, Dylan, we didn't have any of this functionality before, right? Like other languages at all?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so one of the things made here was not only introducing like Spanish translations, but we have other things on the horizon as well, and it's really quick to add these new translations. And anybody in the community that wants to help out with that would be great. So that's just a little bit of accessibility related stuff. But basically the focus of this new site and the reason why I've slightly changed the design up is because when I was trying to take the existing one that I had made and was optimizing it for mobile, I noticed there was a lot of scrolling within scrolling functionality. That's usually something that you want to avoid. And so I feel that this newer design alleviates that problem and is more like usable both on mobile and on desktop. So what you'll notice is that on each of the screens that we're going to look at, there's a few things that are in common, mainly the header bar at the top of the screen and the interactions on the bottom, or sorry, not the interactions, the different pages are on the bottom. We've taken away some of the focus on categories because each of the categories right now only has a single pool associated with it. So this will simplify the interface. The mobile version of this, it's going to look very similar, except instead of seeing the words here, you're going to just see the icons. But they're located on the bottom for easily thumb tappability, and it's just something that I've come to prefer throughout my career. Okay, so we have two panels on the left-hand side, one on the left, one on the right. The one on the left-hand side is just the social media icons. The one on the right is going to be the transaction tracker. And so this site is going to have a big emphasis on drawer functionality. So I'm very anti-modal. There's a great site called modals.com, which explains why they're kind of old hat at this point. But what we like to use instead are drawers. Now, ignore the fact that this is light themed right now. I'm still messing with a couple of those things. But the idea is that the majority of the information you need is going to be front and center, easy to read. And anything that needs to get more specific or drilled down is going to involve a drawer. And so there's not going to be any scrolling within scrolling functionality that exists. Okay, so over here, this panel is for transactions. Whenever you execute a transaction or any sort of interaction, you'll get the notification that pops up, kind of like when I connect my wallet here, and it'll let you know. And then the circle with the identicon will appear here, and it'll continue to fill up the screen on the right, and those transactions will eventually be alleviated, and the status will change on them. You can click on it to go to the actual transaction, etc. So that'll be a nice addition to have. Okay, so as we jump into portfolio first, the portfolio page here, I'm putting an emphasis on being able to just catch things at a glance. Here, we've included dNDX as part of the portfolio because we're kind of looking at it as an amalgamated ecosystem thing, whereas before this was sort of completely separated out. But I mean, if you're super invested into one or the other, I don't know. I think we will solicit some opinions here.
Agree.
So here, I'm not actually staking these unstakeable things. Even if I'm a member of the team, I can't do that. But I'm just have these here just so you could see what it would look like if those were there. This is the first page that you've seen that has the contextual bar down here. So this bar is another part of the footer that exists, but it's customizable on a per screen basis. And you'll see another use of this here in a second. So this is the portfolio screen. We go to the staking screen now. And so this is an example of where I'm gonna have to reload the page, but I won't have to do that in the actual production site. So we'll connect it up again real quick. And here it's gonna show each of the, for the index tokens as well as the liquidity tokens. And it's right now it's waiting for a block update. It's not gonna have to do that in the production. But basically, if it's expired, you won't be able to do it. Otherwise, you'll be able to see useful information, and we'll be able to add filtering tools, et cetera, at a later date. Also soliciting feedback on any sort of controls you guys would like to see on these for customization. Next, we'll take a look at pools. So it's going to load up the pools, and it has just the quick information at a glance. You know, you could bookmark this if you just want to glance and see how everything's doing without having to, deep dive on anything in particular. It has the categories right here. The category pages will still exist. They're not being held front and center here on the bottom, but you will be able to access them from either this pools page by clicking on one of these or in the pool page itself. If you're interested in seeing more information about categories. We're still working out a lot of ideas as far as how the organization goes. So again, soliciting feedback. And then finally, we'll jump into one pool itself. So here you'll see the other contextual option that we have in the header. Any page can add these controls to the top. These are for interacting with it on different vendors. We still need description and stuff, but you can see it's a predictable sort of interface for each page that we run across. Here, the majority of this looks similar. We're prioritizing, again, information at a glance. We have the highest ranked here going to the bottom. There's no scrolling on the inside of this. It's going to scroll all the way to the bottom. Luckily, we have a back to scroll top if it's a particularly large list. Slightly sleeker design on the chart, and we adding in ability to expand it and add a whole bunch of new stuff to the chart. I think we put in a very minimal amount of effort on that so far and already gotten okay results. And then finally down here on the recent trades, instead of having the older clunkier interface, we have this more modular interface that has the information in a really readable format. You can click that to go to the actual transaction as well. So this is the majority of the work that's been done. The governing is being moved offsite. I think Dylan can touch on that later if he wants to. But other than that, the only things that you haven't seen, I don't think I have it wired up right now, but yeah, you'll see more drawers. So for example, when I shed, we have the transactions over here, but past a certain amount, you'll click it, you'll be able to see, more transactions. The interactions for the pool, I don't have this wired up either, but if you click this, the drawer will slide in. And on mobile, here on not mobile, the drawer is like, it just takes up a fair amount of space. On mobile, it'll take up the whole screen. And so it'll be very easy to not have to worry about all that damn scrolling. So anyway, I know you guys have been waiting very patiently for this. Honestly, you guys are a great community. Many communities I've been a part of before would have torn me to shreds for not having gotten this out already. But like I said, lots of things getting in the way that have cleared up. Traffic jam is gone, and I've never been more inspired. So thank you guys very much for your patience.
Thank you.
That's looking awesome.
Right, now's the bit where we don't shout at you for undoing your mic. Does anyone want to add anything or ask a question?
Yeah, there's one kind of comment from Buck. I like the look. I wonder if we should stick more with the white, black, silver, gray color family though, which has been quite of the brand until now. Maybe that could be more integrated into the light theme.
Yeah, so right now for the light theme, I'm thinking about just making like a more pastel version of the background color and getting rid of the transparency on the panels. I have coded this in such a way that like making custom themes isn't that big of a deal. So it could be integrated into like a page where you could do that and maybe even export it and share it or whatever. Basically, it's nothing's like hard coded in place to where it would be hard to change the theme. So it's certainly open for suggestions on that front.
Yeah, because it's true the black and white has been quite popular, I think. So maybe we can think about how we can incorporate it a little bit.
One thing to be aware of when it comes to UX design, and I really love this metaphor or whatever the phrase is. People tend to attack things for being samey on the web. But if you look at like books, right? Like when's the last time books as a whole have changed from the format of having a table of contents at the beginning, you know, certain size of type head. Like there's a reason why these commonly used things are commonly used. There's a lot of UX research that goes into that. And when you leverage the money that other people have put in on research and stuff, you can save you know, bundles. So I like to touch on what people have already been doing in the sector, and then leverage feedback from our users to see how we can tailor make it to the people that are you know, near and dear to us.
Yeah.
I was going to say that this is clearly coming from a man who has not read any E.E. Cummings poems, but there we go.
Any other questions, suggestions? Ethan, I see you connecting your audio. Maybe you want to say something.
This is the bit where he's about to.
There's also
he's about to unveil his merch line. Watch.
There's also some nice news which we posted earlier, which is that Julien Benteloup, who is one of the core contributors to Curve and has a bunch of projects in the space, is joining as an advisor. So yeah, I think there's also a lot of synergies with Stake DAO, which is also about like developing passive portfolio management strategies, not so much indices, but yeah, we expect that there'll be some collaborations there, and just like his technical expertise is going to be yeah, really appreciated. And yeah, it's a paid role. Yeah, Dylan, do you wanna like talk about the amount? I think it's okay, right? Since we're a decentralized community, and this coming from yeah, not the Treasury DAO obviously, but the team allocation. But yeah, then do you wanna? I can't remember the amount, so do you wanna say it?
Yeah, sure. So he has 10,000 NDX staking over or vesting over 6 months in exchange for being an advisor, and yeah, we expect that that'll be quite a good investment.
Arman has just mentioned, would there potentially be any airdrops for early participants of V1? So I mentioned this in the roadmap document recently, in the form of the KPI options airdrop for in conjunction with UMA. The long and the short answer is yes, very early. The exact details I'm still hammering out, because I think the original plan that I'd been thinking about was doing a split of some options tokens between early supporters of the protocol and some external communities that we'd want deeper integration with. There have been some adjustments to that plan, nothing put in concrete yet, but just something that I'd like to flesh out a bit more before I present to the DAO. So yeah, to answer your question, yes. The secondary question of how early, probably mid-February, the 1st of March, maybe a bit earlier than that. I guess that's not very early. Very early would be January. So kind of, you know, yeah, tail end of Feb.
Okay. Hey guys, thanks for all those details. Can I ask you a question?
Please.
Cool. Yeah, I read that you have some plans on offering dynamic Uniswap V3 LP strategies. Can you share some details on these strategies?
Yeah, so that's not the like top priority right now. We do have something that we're looking to have ready for the launch of V3. That is just like the simplest strategy or like LP manager that you can have, which really just makes an ERC20 token out of a particular price range that you want to have on an LP token. But we do want to make more complicated strategies for V3. The first one that we're looking at is a volatility-based rebalancer. So the idea there would be you watch the price over, like a certain duration, maybe like a couple of days. You take the mean of that price, and then you use the volatility of it to try to keep all of your liquidity in like a really tight range so that you're kind of maximizing the fees you're able to get. There are some details there to still work out with regard to how to do the rebalancing while minimizing like impermanent loss, because you have to then like buy and sell tokens within the pair itself. So that is still pretty early stage. There are other strategies they've been thinking about, but no details to share on that right now.
But this will.
Cool. So in terms of timeline, all these vault plans, they would be after the V2, right? Of the indices. Is that correct?
You mean the strategies for V3?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think those will be after index V2, or maybe like around the same time. We might have like the first one ready by the time that like V2 is out, but yeah, timeline there is still kind of hazy.
Are there already some target dates for V2?
Want to have the code finished pending an audit in like the middle or late May.
Okay.
And the passive LP strategies for Uniswap, this would like start with some very popular pairs or just one pair. What would be the idea there?
So we might do some that are for like particular pairs. For the volatility based one, that'll be something that you can just deploy for any pool or any particular pair on Uniswap. But yeah, so there is a detail there, which is that with those pairs, there's going to be some regular like maintenance calls that you need to do. So like executing a rebalance, for example, or like claiming the fees that have been generated. So if you were to just like deploy your own pair using like a factory contract that we set up, you would need to do those yourself. Whereas for the more popular pairs that we really want to support, we would be setting up like keeper bots for that to automate it. And so then with that, there's also the possibility of adding some small fees to that, either just like based on the swap fees that are generated, maybe withdrawal fees, something like that, to kind of pay for the keeper bots on any pairs that we decide to support ourselves.
Any other
Sorry, I've been going lunatic in the chat. Apologies.
Any other questions? What do you think about the format of this call? Since it's our second call, do you like the?
Hey guys.
Do you like it with?
Sorry.
Oh yeah, is there a question?
Can I kind of question or propose something?
Sure.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Federico. I'm from Argentina, from Buenos Aires.
Hola.
Hola. How are you, Lawrence?
Good, thanks, man.
Now I was thinking about because do you know the POAP protocol, proof of attendance protocol? Yeah.
Yep.
And maybe sorry I got in the way, Emmanuel, but you were asking about that, so I was thinking about maybe giving away POAPs to strengthen the community and grow the sense of belonging, because I think index is a very like how do you say, a very popular or you are trying to target YouTube and all these things that maybe here in Argentina it's a big community, lots of things, and the POAP is something that now you can do it in XDAI blockchain, for example.
Yeah.
Pennies.
I've seen.
Oh, go on.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've seen that Zapper does it. For example, if you attend their community calls, you can claim a POAP for every community call that you have attended. I think it's cool, but I mean, I wonder what the incentive is for people really, and I would love to hear your opinion on that. Yeah, me myself, I've claimed one when I attended the Zapper call, but it's not like it's a huge incentive to attend just for that. But yeah,
I mean, I can add a little bit about this. I mean, I think the thing about, especially if you do it on XDAI, right? POAPs are just very much kind of, they're not going to sell for a massive amount, but they're I was there things. So I have one POAP. It's from rescuing a moon cat, because I thought that this is how I was going to retire. I was at ETHCC in February last year, where I watched POAP do their first, one of their first kind of major proposals. I think they'd just come from Denver. And I remember thinking this is either going to die a death or it's going to get quite popular. And it seems to have kind of straddled the middle. Now, I mean, this isn't an alpha leak or something, but we have actually, and we also haven't talked about this for a while, and I suspect Dylan may have forgotten about this, but we did actually put together some ideas for like POAPs for people who voted on like the very first proposals. I told you he'd forgotten. So like the idea has been there. It just has, it's just the nature of having everything else that's happened. Like, I think like one of the first couple that voted, it was just very much like, I was there, like NDX, like whatever thing, number one, what have you.
There's Samuel actually put together an image for that.
Yeah.
Proposal.
Yeah, I remember. And like, and we have people here now, like Oceanography and Bay and whatever, who can throw these things together for us. And it doesn't cost much to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it could be fun. I'm in favor of it because, like, they mean nothing except to the, like, whatever they are to the person that got them. Like, they're flare badges for the outfit, for your uniform.
It's a bit like the NFT that we distributed to NFTP liquidity providers. So the first 100 received, or 50 so far received. And
I absolutely guarantee you that the next thing you're going to get is, when are you sending out the next batch of NFTs? Because you've just spoken it into existence now.
If they're in this call, but I don't know if they're in this call. But yeah, I'm slacking a bit on the distribution, but it's 40 have been distributed so far. But the POAPs are a great idea. I think actually, I'm not saying that we'll do this because we have never discussed this, but I think also it's if an airdrop would happen, it would be cool, or for any protocol to kind of airdrop it to people who attend community calls. When I saw Zapper doing this, I thought that maybe if they ever launch a token, they might distribute it to community call participants, but that's pure speculation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think something like this will eventually retroactively happen, kind of as a, don't forget, we haven't forgotten. But sorry, I'm also looking at chat while I talk. I think just when things dial down a little bit, then we'll be like, oh, we should probably do some of the POAP stuff. So yeah, I mean, thanks for reminding us. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason to, especially on XDAI. It's just bandwidth for people that can do stuff.
For the L2 plans, yeah, so far, I mean, I think I can answer this one, and then Dylan, you can extend, or Lawrence. But yeah, we think that the minting and the governance should happen on L1 for now. But we want to have liquidity for the indices on any relevant L2 and any relevant decentralized exchange or centralized exchange in the future, hopefully with Wintermute. But in order to have liquidity for our indices on L2s, we don't need to actually have any contracts there. We can just bridge them over, like in the case of Polygon, and then incentivize liquidity there. But there's no real benefit in also having the minting contracts and the governance there, because it adds a lot of complexity for like close to zero benefit. So this is what we discussed so far, but we do have plans to add it to more L2s. So for example, Loopring is one that I have in the pipeline. Actually, someone from Avalanche also reached out, and I'm trying to get us some liquidity mining on Pangolin, which is sort of the biggest exchange on Avalanche, but we don't need to put our contracts there.
Yeah, the only way that that will change is probably with Optimism if they get a lot of liquidity onto the L2, which I don't expect will happen until like pretty late this year. But if it does, then we might want to look into deploying some of the base contracts onto Optimism. But unless there's just a ton of liquidity on the chain, it'll just be sending the tokens there with some kind of wrapper. As far as Matic, I don't think so. It's more going to be sending the ERC20s there, which you know, on its own, that is that'll be great to get the tokens there, because then, you know, users can access them. But yeah, you won't be able to like mint the tokens on L2 for quite a while at least. And then since you mentioned Wintermute, did we talk about that at all?
Very, very briefly.
Very briefly,
we
yeah.
just passed them.
Okay. Yeah, so the proposal for Wintermute trading is up. It actually hit quorum already. I think that was the fastest proposal to hit quorum. It only took like 4 or 5 hours, something like that. But yeah, so it looks like that'll be passed, and then this Sunday will be the treasurer will transfer 150,000 tokens to Wintermute trading, and then hopefully we'll get onto some centralized exchanges thereafter. But if you haven't already voted or read it, I encourage everyone to go read the contract. It's a pretty interesting document. I don't know how many of them there have been, but it's a legal document between Wintermute Trading and the indexed finance treasury. It's not between me, it's not between Lawrence or Lito, it's directly with the DAO. So as a member of the DAO, I encourage you to go read it.
I did like the way that you phrased it. So yeah, effectively, if you're voting, you're writing part of the signature. And when I say you, I mean whoever's listening to this. So yeah, I don't know if anyone, like, if there's been much public talk about kind of, you know, DAO to legal, like, constituted entity, but we're one of the first. And that's pretty big in and of itself. I mean, it's more a kind of an operational thing rather than how it actively affects the protocol, but take the wins where we can.
I have one question regards to L2. So I agree it doesn't make really sense to deploy all the contracts to another L2, since as a user you can just buy the index on each of those L2s. But to what degree do the prices of the indices stay in line with one another across the L2s? Because I guess you can't redeem them on these L2s, so it's harder to
arbitrage. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, to arbitrage and keep prices in sync, right? And have you discovered any price discrepancies across these different L2s? Because I guess it takes more of a price move to keep things, because you need to bridge them back and forth and whatnot.
See, you don't really need to transfer them between the tokens to do arbitrage. This is something that market makers have been doing forever, really. If you have 2 different centralized exchanges that market makers have liquidity in, they're not going to be transferring tokens between each exchange in order to execute arbitrage. They kind of just, you know, buy on one, sell on the other, and, you know, as their liquidity dries up in one side of you know, whatever the pair is on the different exchanges, then they'll start to do transfers like between exchanges, or in this case between chains. So it's really just a matter of how much liquidity is there. If there's a fair amount, if there's, you know, a couple $100,000, something like that, and particularly on the L2 where you don't have high gas fees, I think there's going to be market makers executing arbitrage and keeping the prices in line, kind of regardless of how long it takes to actually transfer assets between chains.
Right now, I've checked for DeFi 5, is like a 20 cents difference between Uniswap and QuickSwap.
Okay, so you haven't observed any major differences?
We haven't been actively monitoring it, but at the same time, you know, we haven't heard anything where someone's going, "Holy shit, it's a 20% discount on Matic."
Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah, I guess someone would have flagged it if it was the case.
Well, they wouldn't have and have just arbed it for themselves. But you know, no one's
Yeah.
going, "Oh, a secret alpha leak, boys." Like, that's not happening.
I have seen an interesting thing though lately with Bancor, as liquidity has been growing. So it's at 1 million liquidity right now, and then a lot more as they will add the core investment and liquidity mining. But I've seen that at some points, I don't know what it is now, but it was trading at like $2 more on Bancor than on Uniswap. And I was thinking about arbitraging it, but the gas, it was 2 days ago and the gas cost was so high. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do it.
I think that they're always like pretty out of sync prices whenever we launch a new index, because a load of Uniswap bots, which just buy up anything, any new token that exists, decide to ape in to the index and push up the price of the index token.
New proposal: index of salmonella tokens.
No.
Yeah, the instant no, it's not happening.
Yeah, and we haven't discussed also 0xB1 index, which kind of got confirmed today by him tweeting about it. So we were required, basically, I don't know if we mentioned this in the last community call, but 0xB1, he's like the largest wallet in the DeFi space. I think he has close to $1 billion in his wallet. Many people tracking what he does, and he reached out via Jonathan, can you mute yourself? He reached out via another. Wait, I'm gonna mute him. No, I can't. He reached out via a third person and asked to develop this index for him or this group. And we weren't sure if it was really him, but now he, for the second time in a row, did a tweet with his account and
He signed with his wallet as well.
Yeah, okay, yeah, signed the message with his wallet. So yeah, this is coming, and he committed how much liquidity again from his personal wallet?
It'll be 500,000 when it launches. So
Okay,
yeah, so it's going to be initialized at what is it, $5,000 a token, 500 tokens. He's gonna or they are going to purchase all of it to start with, and then immediately put it up as well. So to the state of that, there is still some work that needs happening on the controller for that, because it'll be a new strategy as a barbell. Again, details of this are on the forum. We've received some logo ideas from them, so you know we have that done. We've now established kind of proof of life in various forms that it is B1. So shouldn't be too much longer. It's just a matter of queuing it up with everything else that's going on. We've received some kind of some assurances that they'll be marketing it themselves. Anyone who watches the B1 wallet, that's definitely a net bonus if they go, "What's this token?" etc. It's in his interest to advertise it as well. Not too much else to add on that.
My guess is that they will add a lot more liquidity than the 500,000, since they're gonna stick for it with their own brand and name. And
yeah, I mean, I don't want to make any assumptions, but
no, for sure, it's just my own processes.
In terms of other promising strategies, the only other one that we've really talked about lately is the one that would be associated with the Future of Finance Fund, which would be like, again, work hasn't really started on setting up the controller for this yet. I want to have a look at it myself, kind of as a dipping back into Solidity. But that would be a pegging of wrapped ETH and wrapped Bitcoin to certain percentages, and then using a circulating market cap weighting across the remnant of whatever's left. Really, we could get as, I think we've mentioned this many times, get as creative as we want. It's just really kind of, as people suggests what they are. I think that's just the extent of where things are in controller right now. Anything that can really be produced by data that's on chain and doesn't use ridiculous integral stuff, or even can be, you know, is fine to use. It's just, well, suggested.
Cool. All right, if there are not any other questions, I think we can call it a day for today.
Hello.
Ah.
He waits until the very end.
So I was thinking about the more ways of accruing value to the NDX token. And I was thinking, is there a way that we can have a system where new indices that are launched on the protocol, the NDX holders can be airdropped a little, just like the new index that we want to bring on the protocol. So maybe index holders can have a bit of airdrop from maybe, you know, such, I don't know if you are getting.
I get your point. The question there becomes, it would have to be, in that case, probably the treasury that would mint it. And I would argue that that is not a good use of funds.
Okay, all right.
I mean, it's good to kind of go, you know, if you hold something already, here you are, but the odds are that you're probably already hyper aware of the release of a new thing. So it's diminishing, if not zero returns. I mean, it's a good idea, but you know, if we were to do it with someone else's money as opposed to the DAOs, then great.
Yeah, the other part of that is the treasury doesn't really hold a bunch of arbitrary ERC20s. At the moment, it has dNDX and like some exit fees. So, you know, our index tokens. If we make a new index and we wanted to mint a bunch of them from the treasury, we'd have to like withdraw DAI or something to a person who would then swap it for all the other tokens and then mint the index and then airdrop it. And I think it would just be more hassle than it would be worth.
All right, cool. It's been an hour and a half and my dog is shouting at me. Are we done?
Yes.
I think so.
I believe so.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Yeah, no, thank you everyone. It's less people this time around than the first one, but I'm sure this is just, well,
Fewer people, Dr. Day. Fewer.
Man, I'm a maths guy, all right. Right. Well, I'll kill the recording. This will go up on YouTube shortly, and I'll just ping everyone again because I know how much you guys love getting at everyone on the Discord server. So yeah, right, Lido, I'll let you lead us out.
Bye-bye.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Cheers, everyone.